Oh, at least it looks like there are no video problems this week. Thank goodness. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to what we call Cast Iron Wednesday, which is a long running tradition that a number of foodie YouTube channels have been doing on Wednesdays. We have a lot of fun putting together a cast iron video, and in this case, I happen to be doing mine live. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Maybe it's because I like the excitement and the thrill of anything could happen, and it usually does. But nonetheless, we've actually been managing to do this for almost 4 years at this point here on this YouTube channel. So thank you to everybody who's been kind enough to come back and watch each week as I do another attempt at well, cooking in cast iron or talking about cast iron. But tonight we're definitely going to be doing some cooking. Let me reassure you of that. In fact, I'm doing something that I was supposed to do last week, but unfortunately it was kind of postponed last week because of the emergency that happened on my website, an emergency that is kind of still in progress, but I'll be talking to you about that in a little bit. Nonetheless, welcome to everybody who's been kind enough to show up here tonight. I mean, there are a lot of familiar names, and I'm always glad to see that. And I'm also glad to see people who have never been here before. Hello to Flash 1999 and Jimmy Langford. And hello, Farm Boy 762, as you wish. And Cynthia Wesley, hello, welcome back. And Pat Z and Celine 77 star 99, Mercy B and Pidgorn and Rocket Caver and Rich Qualls. Yes, well, thank you. Well, thank you very much for the nice words. And hello to Anthony. What's up? And Greg Hart. Great to be here. And and everybody. And hello, Chris McGee and everybody else who's been kind enough to show up here on this channel because. Yes, as I mentioned tonight, I guess we are looking at another piece of cast iron here. This is one that I acquired recently, and I'm finally having the chance to actually get to use it because, well, that's what it's here for. I've said enough times that I want the pans in my kitchen to be users rather than just display pieces. Although this display piece would probably be proud to be on anybody's display here because, yes, what we have here, in fact, is the Lodge Cast Iron 2024 Year of the Dragon skillet. So yes, indeed, I definitely wanted to get this largely because of the wonderful design here on the front, and not to mention that, of course, it is the year 2024, and I definitely intend to do a few things this year that will make this especially significant. But nonetheless, here it is. This is a 10-inch skillet, a 10-inch Lodge skillet. It's typical of a Lodge skillet in every other way. It has, of course, the Lodge logo on the front and the hanging handle, or helper handle, I should say. So yes, this is indeed a modern day cast iron pan. This is the kind that's supposed to have a bumpy surface and is supposed to be, is not be non-stick and all the rest of the things they usually say about Lodge cast iron, almost all of which is not true. I love cooking in Lodge cast iron, and this is only one Lodge piece in my collection, of which I have, well, more than I care to admit. Yes, and hello to everybody as well who is still saying hi, especially since, well, now that we've done that, it's time to turn on the heat, and this pan has now officially been broken in. But nonetheless, that's only because, well, we are doing some cooking tonight, as the title of this video says, namely that we are doing a shepherd's pie tonight. Shepherd's pie in cast iron is easy to make, and I love easy dishes. It's delicious, and believe me, once you've made it in cast iron, you're not going to be coming back. Probably not, anyway, to using glass dishes or any other kind of baking dishes. I can't wait to find out where. Yes, it's true, Celine 77. I mean, the thing they say about shepherd's pie is that when you usually make it, at least in the United States, it's really not a shepherd's pie, but rather it is technically a cottage pie because, of course, it's made with ground beef. Rather than lamb, which is what's used to make a shepherd's pie. But in this case, you are entirely correct because, as stated, I'm not using lamb or ground beef for this particular shepherd's pie tonight, but rather, in fact, we are doing something a little bit different and using camel meat. Yes, indeed. Its thing here says camel patties. Basically, these are indeed ground camel meats that were shaped into patties, meant to making camel burgers. But rather than do that, well, we've got a full pound of this meat here, and of course, that's just the right amount to go into a shepherd's pie. You know, if shepherd's pie is supposed to be lamb, I wonder what the technical name is then for a shepherd's pie made with camel. I don't know, camel herder's pie, perhaps. I honestly do not know. Hello, handsome stone. Love my 3-notch number 10 lodge. Nice. She's flea bitten by rust, but smooth. If there's an apocalypse, this pan will be saved and used against zombies. Oh, I do not doubt that. New York Zoo is missing a camel. Well, if they are, don't. I know nothing about it. Nonetheless, I've got this pan heating up right now. Let me see here. Are we missing a VP? Every time I come in here, video stops working. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Huggy Bear. As far as I could tell, things seem to be working okay on this end, for whatever that's worth. Yes, it's true, Thomas Camacho. Camel meat. So yeah, we are doing something a little different here tonight. Yes, indeed, largely because I like doing things different. I love trying new things, and that's why, again, when I had the opportunity to acquire camel meat, I figured I might as well go for it just to see what it's like. And this is not my first time making camel meat either. All right, got my 15-inch free large skillet. Holy cow, Jim App! You managed to get a skillet of 15 for free? Then definitely, I'd say maybe you should buy yourself a lottery ticket tonight or something. Anyway, keeps the channel alive. Yes, exactly, Thomas, and that's part of it as well. Cast iron honey badger. I got some rabbit last week and thought I'd do shepherd's pie style. Camel pie sounds good. I will stop at nothing to cook in cast iron. Well, almost nothing. There might be some limits. I mean, some of the things that Hannibal Lecter cooked, I'm probably never going to be cooking in my cast iron. I hope. Okay, but having said all that, shepherd's pie recipe is actually pretty easy, of course, and so especially since it's so easy, we might as well get started here rather than just my standing around here talking about that. Which means the first thing we need to do is instructions. Make the meat filling. Well, thank you very much. Okay, that means actually I better dig up a little bit of oil here. Here we go. Always have to start out with olive oil. And that also means we get to move back over to the oven and take a look at this cast iron that, of course, is really the whole point. Okay, let's go this way. Bring this down a little bit so that you folks can get a nice close-up. Ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille? All right, a little bit more. There we go. And voila, here again is the top side of the Year of the Dragon skillet, which, as you can see, is pretty much the same as any large cast iron skillet. And which, again, not that there's anything wrong with that. Into the oven, into the pan goes some olive oil. And I just want to be sure that this is properly spread around here, which is easy enough. I also have to be sure that this is hot enough. So may actually have to wait about a minute or so to get this to the right temperature here. I may not have heated this thing up enough. Although I might be wrong, it says here, we're already over 400 degrees. So I'd say we're doing pretty good. Yay for this gas stove. It heats up cast iron like nothing. In that case, the first thing we do is toast up. Well, not just toast up, but make some onions. So there's a good start for you. All right. Anyway, if you've never made shepherd's pie in a cast iron skillet, well, of course, obviously, I encourage you to do so because this is one of those things that really helps keep the seasoning good in a cast iron pan here. Oh, I can already smell those onions, especially since this is a Vidalia onion that I cut up. Yeah, I got a bag of Vidalia onions so that we can cook them all with this coming holiday weekend. Nonetheless, all we really need to do is cook these onions until they get, as they say, soft and translucent. And funny how the recipes usually say about 5 minutes. Well, with some stoves and with some frying pans, that may not be the case. Also, with cast iron on a gas stove, that could very well be the case. I mean, if I didn't know better, I might actually think that these onions are starting to shrink already. All right. And I would try mealworms, but I think the wings on a cicada would just stick in your teeth. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of comments about cooking cicadas recently. Here, I'm not sure if this is some kind of an internet running joke, or is this one of those years when the plague of locusts, aka cicadas, is supposed to be coming back? Doesn't that happen like every 7 years or so? If so, then that's pretty interesting because the year of the dragon also happens to happen every 7 years. So that's interesting that the year of the dragon also happens to be accompanied by a plague of locusts. Wonder if there's some kind of symbolism to that. All right. And what other alcohol would work with that peach moonshine pie? I'm out of shine and whiskey. Well, Well, considering that it's a whiskey, I would think anything similar to that we should do. I mean, after all, whiskey is made from corn. I'm not entirely sure what moonshine is made from, but nonetheless, I would think that any. Well, let me see. Maybe white wine. That might not work. Might not be too bad. Okay, try this. What kind of alcohol do you think would go with peaches, for instance, or with fruit? Then that might be something to consider. Or I don't know, do a taste test. Take a mouthful and then have peaches with it and see what kind of combination you might end up with. But yeah, that moonshine cake. Yeah, these onions are definitely already shrinking. That moonshine cake really did not last very long, I will have to say, and I'm actually quite proud of the way that that my guests, they really smashed that cake. It's already gone, and I'm so glad about that. Especially considering how expensive that moonshine was. I would much rather it have been used up like that. That fixes it for any hard liquor will do. I'm a fan of brandy. Thinking spiced rum, cheap brandy. All of those actually sounds pretty good. Locusts are grasshoppers. Okay, so that's not quite the same. Are your onions shrinking? Well, I certainly hope not if you're referring to what I think you're referring to. On the other hand, these onions definitely do seem to be shrinking, which means we are off to a decent start here. Oh, that also reminds me, I better start preheating the oven so that I don't forget. According to the recipe, if I can get past the stupid screensaver, um, do this quickly. There we go. Let me see. Scroll down past all of these dumb pop-up ads. Boy, yeah. Why is it? These recipe sites seem to have more pop-up ads than just about any other thing I see on the web. Okay, guys, on 9 by 9. It is preheat oven to 400 degrees. Okay, let's do that. Bake and get that started so that by the time this is done, the oven will be at 400. Oh yeah, there we go. I don't want to burn the onions, so I'd say that means it's about time to add the meat, which means we get to open up this package of Camel patties and break it up. Looks like this thing is indeed vacuum sealed, which means I will have to dig out my scissors. Why can't I find the scissors? There it is. Here are the scissors. Okay. Also, I think these things might even have paper separators or wax paper or whatever they use to separate burgers. So that means I'm going to have to put this into the pan. There you go. I'm going to have to put this into the pan probably a little bit at a time. Well, at least they're nice thick patties, I'll say that much. There's one. There's two. Make sure I'm not, no, definitely, it's only two. And three. All right. In goes the camel meat. Which means now, get to start breaking it up. Okay, good. Yeah, there's definitely no more paper separators on this. So we are not doing too badly here. And here's the part where I question whether or not I really should go and get one of those ground beef masher thingies. You know, the thing that's like spiral shaped, which everybody loves to use for breaking up ground beef. Usually when I start doing this, I consider getting it, but by the time it's all done, I think it might not actually be necessary. Just keep mixing it all together. Just keep mashing, just keep mashing. And yeah, I could use a potato masher too if I wanted to. But I have a feeling this should work. Oh, by the way, there is very little grease coming from these Camel burgers because Camel, as I read, is a very, very lean meat. Probably has a lot to do with the environment that they're in, you know, the very dry environment, and so they could serve liquid in every way possible. There's practically no grease at all here, so that's good. Means I'm not going to have to drain anything. But yeah, look at the way all those onions seem to have just mixed right in. At first, I was worried. I think I do this every time I make onions. I worried that there were too much onions, and then it turns out in some cases it's actually not enough. In other cases, like right now, I'd say this is looking pretty good already. So there we go. We're definitely looking international or global here. You know, after all, we're making a British recipe for shepherd's pie using camel meat from the Middle East, allegedly, and we're doing it on a USA-made cast iron pan that was actually meant to be sold in China. You know, it was shipped to China for sale there. So yeah, this is a pretty global dish we are doing tonight, and I actually like that. All right, back in the 70s and 80s, we used to smoke camel poop. Okay, Huggy Bear, I think you got me speechless there. What spice profile would you use? No, one of those ethnic places he mentioned. I got a smasher from Dollar Tree. It works great. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. On the other hand, if you notice, all I did was use this big wooden spoon, and it does look like it is all starting to break down nicely. So, I mean, this is looking pretty good already. As for the spice combination I'm using here, this is all a very traditional shepherd's pie recipe, and even though I'm using camel meat, I'm not going to do anything unusual, which means we're just going to be using parsley, rosemary, and thyme. Also, a good dash or two of Worcestershire sauce. I suppose I could look up some kind of a camel meat dish from the Middle East, but as I said, I'm really just going to try to be traditional here, with about the only difference being the camel meat. Over here, meanwhile, in the Wagner aluminum pot, I've got some potatoes, good old russet potatoes that I have been busy simmering so that we will have the mashed potato topping for this pie. Well, I'm not using a cast iron pot, so it's not a pot pie, but it's more like a skillet pie or a pan pie. Is the rumor that there are wild camels running around in the western U.S.? That's an interesting rumor. I don't live in the western U.S., so I'm afraid I am not able to corroborate that. If anybody wants to chime in and say whether or not there are indeed wild camels in the U.S., I'd be interested in knowing myself. I can definitely say that there are wild coyotes roaming around the entire United States from west to east. Even here in the New York area, there are coyotes. So coyotes have definitely adapted to civilization. Honey badger, I use a little can of tomato paste in my shepherd pie. Yeah, and that's exactly what we'll be doing here. I must confess, KCB5150, I must confess, when I make shepherd pie, I buy the Coleman's packet from the UK import store here. It's very tasty, though it gives me like 36 hours of heartburn. Well, I can only hope I don't get any heartburn from this camel meat. On the other hand, I don't see why I would, because as I mentioned already, there's very little grease here. And quite frankly, I am liking that. I think I can adjust the camera very slightly. That seems a little better. All right. It does look like the meat is getting pretty brown, both inside and outside, in that I'm not seeing any reddish bits to it. But I think I'll chew it a couple more minutes until I get at least a few crisp bits here. There's plenty of time yet. It's only 20 past 8, so we are not in a rush. All right, how about calling it Bedouin Bake? Hey, that doesn't sound like a bad one. Is camel meat expensive? Yes, it is. I will have to be honest about that. I actually ordered this from a supplier who shipped it by UPS in a specially designed insulated package used for shipping meat through UPS, and it worked very well. But yeah, I will not deny that this camel meat is probably more expensive than most folks would want to spend. And I'm not criticizing anybody for that. I fully admit I splurged on it. Just because, well, it was something I wanted to do, and I really don't have any other excuse than that. There we go. Oh, the oven is at 400, so we're definitely off to a good start here. Best time is no time for me. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, Cynthia Wesley. There are no camels in Wyoming that I know of. Well, that's good, I guess. What is the price per pound of this meat? I am thinking this was probably about $25. So yeah, as I said, this was not cheap. Not the type of thing that I'm going to do every day either. I mean, you ask me when I'm going to be ordering Camel again, and I can tell you I do not know. But it's one of these things that I've been wanting to do for years, ever since back in Massachusetts, when I was living in a not so great area of town. I was on my daily walk and I came across a small Middle Eastern store, which claimed to have lamb, goat, and camel. And that day I walked in and said, I'd like to try some camel meat. And they said, we don't have any, we are out. And even though I came back to that store a number of times over the past 3 or 4 years, over the next 3 or 4 years, they never had camel meat. They were always out. So that was one thing that stuck with me. So I finally had finally succumbed to the urge to say, okay, I'm going to give it a try, just to do something different. All right. Why does the package say the meat is halal? Well, because it's not pork. I mean, that just simply means it's very easy to say that. Means it meets Muslim standards. That would also mean it's kosher as well. It meets Jewish standards as well. So I mean, there's very little difference as far as I know between halal and kosher. Although I think halal also doesn't allow alcohol, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm sure there are other considerations as well, probably religious ones that I don't know the details of. Nonetheless, okay, halal and kosher rules are quite different. Okay, then I stand corrected, Anthony. Nonetheless, I can definitely say there's no pork in this either way. I personally love pork. I have more than one friend, however, who shuns pork, and so that means most of the cooking I do these days does not have pork in it. That gets tricky when we start talking about things like jambalaya, for instance. After all, Memorial Day is this weekend. Memorial Day cooking is coming. And I'm thinking maybe I should really go and do a nice big jambalaya, except that it would not have any pork in it. So yeah, I know. That means what? No bacon, no lard, no sausage? Well, I'll find a way around it. There are beef sausages, of course. Okay, I do believe that we're finally at the point here that we can actually move on here. So, got to get past the screensaver once again. All right. Okay, yeah, here's where we add our spices here, which means about 2 teaspoons. Yeah, that's right. It says 2 teaspoons of dried parsley. Whereas you can see I'm being very exact with my measurements. Okay, then we've got 1 teaspoon each of dried rosemary and dried thyme. So here is the rosemary. Ooh, I can smell that already. It's mixing in nicely though with that meat. Here's the thyme. I know we've all done enough jokes about having too much time on our hands. Come on. Gotta get this cap back on. Then from here, we do about half a teaspoon of salt. Come on. There we go. Half a teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon of ground black pepper. And then from there, we're also going to throw in a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, aka Worcestershire sauce. I know that's another one of those long-running internet jokes that nobody knows how to pronounce Worcestershire. You know, like liverwurst. Worcestershire. Or Shire, if you prefer. Either works. But all my life, I grew up my family pronounced it Worcestershire. Definitely a smell to it now. Now from here, okay, now that we've done all that, salt and pepper, and cook now until the meat is browned. Now we add some Worcestershire sauce and garlic. So, about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and that's good because I get to break open a new bottle. I don't know about you, but as far as I'm concerned, there is one Worcestershire sauce. There can be only one, and that is Lea & Perrins. All right. Hope you can hear that. I might have used too much. I don't think anybody's got to complain about that. Oh, man. Then to this. All right. From here, about 2 cloves of minced garlic. Well, here again is where we cheat a little bit. Breaking open a new container of one of these. I think a lot of people have these huge containers of minced garlic. You know, the kind that the real professional chefs and the foodie folks, they all look down their noses there. How dare you get minced garlic from a jar? Well, guess what? Here it is. And here comes 1 teaspoon and 2 teaspoons. All right. So far, so good. Yeah, this is definitely dry, all right. Hope it's not too dry. Well, at this point, now that we've done that, we're going to do a couple of other things. One is we actually need to put in some flour. And here's the part that you mentioned already, tomato paste. So yes, we are using this stuff as well. That means I get to take out a little knife. I find that the knife is probably the easiest way to get this stuff out of here. There we go. All right. Have to keep my glove on here, that's for sure. And we stir it all together. Then once it's all stirred together, then we will finally add some liquid to this. All right. Camel meat is good, not great, but okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what we will find out. Papa Dan and anyone in the area. I can't pronounce German wines. They always sound stupid when I ask for Gewürztraminer. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm already losing phone. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, you know, they've been talking thunderstorms all day, and granted, there's a lot of wind blowing around outside, but so far, no sign of any rain yet. Oh yeah, this is definitely starting to get a crust on the bottom here. So here's hoping that I can deglaze this now, because we're supposed to add a cup of beef broth. I've never had camel, but I've eaten buffalo. Is it similar? No, I would not say that it's similar. I might disagree there. I don't know, because probably, you know, camel is probably closer to horses, I think, than bison or buffalo. There we go. I'm saying we're supposed to do this until it thickens. That was beef broth for the record. And now we are getting somewhere. Yeah, because, oh yeah, that's also helping to deglaze the pan too. I like that. I might actually have to throw in some more. This meat mixture does seem to be absorbing that liquid there. It definitely was dry. But no, this is looking pretty good now at this point. All right. Then from here, yeah, you know what? I think I will throw in more. What about llamas, ruminators? I've never had llama, but then again, I've never been to South America either. I mean, I've eaten Brazilian. That should be more than enough there. I've eaten Brazilian and loved it, but I can't say I've ever had llama. I wouldn't be surprised if they have it, though. I mean, really, pretty much just about any domesticated animal that you could think of, somebody has eaten. And we will go from there. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, there is a very famous meat market called Savinor's, where they have all kinds of international meats. They have had lion meat, for instance. Not to mention, that was at Savinor's that I had my first taste of wild boar, and man, was that ever good. I would highly recommend wild boar if you ever get a chance to taste it. All right. You all be safe. Yeah, exactly. Everything I can find is saying that the camel is like beef and lamb mixed. Well, that might be one way to say it, but definitely not like bison in that case. Okay. Now that we've done that, the next and almost the last step is to throw in some frozen vegetables. And the recipe specifically mentions frozen vegetables. I guess cooking them this way will ensure that they don't turn into mash. I'm supposed to do about half a cup of frozen corn. That's probably more than enough, in fact. That's all right. And then from here, we do maybe about a cup of frozen peas and carrots. Yeah, as I said, this is your typical shepherd's pie recipe. I think there are probably like about 1,000 variations on this. There we go. Bam. Now that we've done that, we mix it all together. Don't want to spill it. I might have overdone it with the veggies, but I don't think I don't think the people who will be eating this will mind. I might disagree. I think this might actually be mixing in rather nicely here. Colorful too. Yeah, no, not bad at all. I mean, if you want a meat pie, of course, you could omit these vegetables completely. But on the other hand, putting in all these vegetables, not only does it add color, but, well, again, it also adds more volume to it. You get more out of it that way. Because, yeah, this looks like it's going to be, I mean, at this point, really, from here, all we have to do is top it with mashed potatoes. So I, for one, am not complaining. So far, so good. Let me do a little bit more mixing to make sure it's all thoroughly together. And now that we have that, two things we need to do. One is let's stick a lid on that. And yay, this is one reason why I wanted to use that large cast iron skillet tonight, because where is it? There it is. Because that means I also get to break in another piece that I'm really, really happy to do tonight. Hey, having trouble with my computer. I'm sorry, Terry Sinchef, for Morris family. I've had whale sashimi in Japan too. It's bloody. I guess it's hard to bleed. Ooh, where whale is like caribou. Yeah, I see. We're talking about different kinds of meats, that's for sure. But nonetheless, onto this large cast iron pan, we're going to put a large cast iron lid, and not just any lid. Ta-da! The ARC logo lid that I managed to acquire at the National Cornbread Festival. Let's turn the heat off here because this is nice and hot. All we really need to do is just let this steep and steam for a little bit. Taste the meat. All right, you would love it if you don't have one. Well, it's got all of those frozen veggies in it. I think I should at least wait until those vegetables cook for a few minutes or so before I try tasting it. But nonetheless, there we go. We've got a modern day large cast iron pan and a very vintage large cast iron lid on the top. So I quite like the combination. All right, but that means now that we're at this point, oh yeah, I love this lid too for Morris family. I mean, I'm really, really excited to be able to own this. Carrots and peas belong in soup. Oh yeah, here's okay. Well, that's everybody has their own tastes, and I will leave it at that. However, now that we've done all that, time to get over to the other pot, which, as folks who have been following this channel know, this is one of my few pots that is not cast iron, but I've gotten an enormous amount of use out of. And that, of course, is the Wagner Magnalite aluminum Dutch oven, of which I have been simmering and boiling some diced up, or at least cut up, russet potatoes. So, okay, so actually, before I do that, I'd better get out my necessary things for the mashed potatoes, which would have to be butter. Come on, butter and some whole milk. There we go. Okay, now let's also make some room here so that we can do this. Move all these things out of the way. Okay, good. Okay, now that we've done that, okay, time to move over to the sink, because here is another suggestion that I got. I believe, in fact, it was from someone on this channel. I heard your advice, and I'm definitely using it. That is that here, before I pour boiling water down the sink, I'm also going to run cold water into the sink, so that it should, not have any effect on the pipes that I'm about to drain this into. So here we go. Okay, we can turn that off. And now move back here to the pot. And I think I should probably raise this a little bit. There we go. Move that down, and there is our view. Much better. Hit the like button. Well, thank you very much. When Bill Gates' lab meat takes over, I'm going vegan. Well, I'm actually going to give it a try if and when this lab grown meat actually becomes becomes available. Yeah, I am a risk taker, and I will definitely give it a try if and when I get the chance. Nonetheless, let's not waste any more time right now. And here are our potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a shepherd's pie, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. Which means now that we have our potatoes, let's add some stuff to make it taste even better. I love potatoes, but I love mashed potatoes even more. All right, come on. Stick of butter. Let me see. There is already salt in the water, so I don't need to add a lot more salt. On the other hand, we've got more pepper. And then from here, oh yeah, I knew I forgot something. Forgot to dig out the basil, which I have. Here it is. Good. Don't need too much. Don't want it to over, because basil can be strong, so we only need a little bit. That's probably plenty. Parsley, which is not as overpowering as basil. And throw in the milk. And actually, there's one other thing that this particular recipe calls for, and I like the idea. To this, we also throw in Parmesan cheese. So yeah, I'm all for that. Any excuse to use some of this stuff sounds good to me. So let's also throw in some of this stuff here, grated cheese. Now that we've done all that, time to start mashing at last. Which means let's do this as quickly as we can. I probably should have covered this butter with the potatoes at the very beginning. Nonetheless, this butter is already softening up, so I'd say we're off to a decent start. There we go. What's more, even though it looks liquidy, it does appear the potatoes are soaking it all up, because when we scrape it, as you can see, it looks like just that. And this is why I always, and I mean always, make my own mashed potatoes. The box stuff, can't remember the last time I had it. I mean, the box stuff is okay, for the record. You know, I am not one to diss store-bought ingredients. I still use store-bought ingredients. Box stuff is okay, but really, mashed potatoes, homemade, are just so much better. And bam, there we go. Just like that. Which also means one thing though, I'd better rinse off this masher right away so that the potatoes don't, dry off and get stuck to it. All right. So far, so good. Okay. Meanwhile, who wants to eat the food while watching fake news? Who wants to eat fake food while watching fake news? I want one of those mashers. Yeah, this masher here. I know I've told this story before. This industrial strength thing, and it actually is. I ordered this, God, going on at least 10 years ago now, from Amazon, because I was tired of dollar store mashers. The kind that break after like maybe one or two uses. I wanted something that would last a long time. So I went onto Amazon and ended up ordering this because it mentioned 4 inches, and I thought the entire masher was only about 4 inches, 4 inches long. Turned out 4 inches is the width, and this silly thing probably comes to at least 1.5 feet long or more. So this is one huge and heavy masher, but hey, it does its job. So yeah, I'm quite happy to use this whenever I can. I think you got that masher on Amazon. Yes, exactly, Jimmy Langsford. A lot of times the generic store-bought brand is right behind the expensive brand. The Good Health, like Good Health, Iron Mountain, and Griswold. Yes, exactly. So used to raise turkeys on the farm. So much flavor. Okay, now that we've done all that, we are about ready for the last part, which means I will bring over. Okay, I hope this. I still need a pot holder for this pan, but this should be enough. Ugh, there we go. But here we are. Here again is the lodge lid. Yeah, I'm definitely proud of this, and I'm going to really try to be using this in as many videos as possible. But there we are. There is our filling. And somebody asked me to taste it, so I think I will do just that. Granted, this thing has a lot of spices in it too, but nonetheless, here's a little bit of the meat. Mm, mm, mm. I can definitely taste something of this, though. Oh, yeah. There is an exotic flavor to it. I will say that. So, well, I'm definitely not regretting it. I will also say that too. All right, but say it or not, now comes the part that everybody knows, which is where you just wanted to use that lid. Yes, I did. Old lid, but how old? Well, the fact, good, I can pick this up with my hands. The fact that it has the large ARC logo means that this thing could not be much more than what would you say, the 1920s perhaps? My understanding is Lodge produced this kind of lid, which they call the rope handle lid, at least through the 1930s, maybe to 1940 or so. But the ARC logo from the Lodge definitely suggests that it's older than that. So I might guess, therefore, maybe around 1920 or even earlier, which means this lid is 100 years old or more. So I'm quite happy about that too. All right. Okay. Let's not waste any more time and start scooping on the mashed potatoes. Ooh, nice. And there's a lot of melted butter residue in here too. So this thing is definitely going to have flavor, that's for sure. All right, so far so good. Might be, yeah, I'd say we probably have more than enough in here already. Because all we have to do is cover it. In fact, I could probably even press down the center a little bit. Don't want it to come over the sides. And especially since camel is such a lean meat, I don't expect there to be much, if any, dripping liquid as it bakes in the oven. But so far, so good. All right, that means there we are. You're just in time. Here is the shepherd's pie, and it is about to go into the oven. So this will only take like what, maybe 20 minutes or so, I think.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh yeah. And by the way, here, scrape off a little bit of this buttered saturated mashed
I
potatoes.
will be happy to.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah, I want to lick the spoon, and you're not the only one. One of my house guests is right here. She is busy helping herself to a tiny little bit of the mashed potatoes. they Anyway, which means now here comes the last part, and then we just get to wait and have a conversation, which means you just
We get to talk about how you're having camel on Wednesday.
yes, exactly.
Hump day.
Yes, hump day in more ways than one. You are correct. This is definitely hump day. There could very well be camel hump in this thing. Okay, in we go. Don't want to spill it. And all right, haha, it is in. So now we just wait really until the crust is dried off. So okay. The meal looks as tempting as HE double toothpicks. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Needs a sprinkle of a good cheddar. Well, there is Parmesan currently mixed into the mashed potatoes too. So this is definitely going to be something. Yeah, probably it wouldn't be a bad idea to spread some cheddar on the top. But I have to be honest, I think we're out of cheddar at the moment. Nonetheless, there we go. And that in the oven is, in fact, the Year of the Dragon skillet. So, yeah, is it true there's a law you can only cook camel on Wednesday? I have never heard of that. I really would need to look that up, and if so, well, good. All right. Um, that seems pretty obscure, but who knows? So, nonetheless, as I mentioned there, okay, yeah, like I said, it's a real international dish here tonight because we have used a just that we've used a made in the USA Lodge cast iron skillet, which was then shipped over to China for sale there, and it has the Chinese design on it. Again, the Year of the Dragon. And to this, we made the meat out of, well, Camel from the Middle East, and we're using a British dish, good old shepherd's pie. So yeah, this is definitely, well, help yourself. Well, you are helping
Is
yourself,
that
yes.
British or more Irish, Scottish?
Maybe Irish. Okay, actually, yeah, I know. Especially since I realize, I don't think Ireland would like to hear about one of their dishes being called British. So, but yeah, so we're definitely going to have something of an international dish tonight when this is all done in what, maybe about another 20 minutes or so. Is it true that you should feed the dragon greens like lettuce or cabbage? Well, that I don't know. I think I'll have to ask the dragon when it comes out of the oven. We will channel the spirit of this dragon. Besides, we still need to properly, we need to actually properly hollow out that pan anyway. We'll have to conjure up some kind of a spirit and see which dragon might end up inhabiting it. Although I think I can safely say it's not going to be Smog the Golden, nor is it going to be Ancalagon the Black. Um, I'm sure you've heard of Smog the Golden, of course. Yeah, that was the dragon from The Hobbit. Whereas in the Silmarillion, in the great battle that when the Dark Lord Morgoth was overthrown, yeah, here I go geeking again. The armies of the Valar, the lords of the West, finally overwhelmed the hosts of Morgoth in the great battle, and all seemed lost when Morgoth finally he pretty much had one last desperate play to try to save his hide in the war against the Valar, and that was when he released for the first time in Middle Earth the winged dragons. And it was an enormous host of dragons. I'm not talking like one or two. We're probably talking like hundreds or probably even more. And it's like that, as yeah, the Silmarillion said, the coming of the dragons was accompanied by thunder and lightning and all that. So, mm-hmm. And yeah, the greatest of those dragons was Ancalagon the Black. So, yeah, in fact, when he was finally slain by Arendelle, no less, he fell right upon the towers of Thangorodrim, the towers of Morgoth, and they were shattered in his fall. So, anyway, that was Ancalagon the Black. Okay, dragons need fiber too. Green brings luck. Trust me. Feed the dragon greens. Okay, well then, in that case, when we actually hollow out this pan, we'll have to cook greens in it, and we'll see what happens. Spinach sounds good. Smog, anyone? Well, yes, as I mentioned, Smog the Golden. He was the dragon from The Hobbit. I don't think dragons need fiber. They're purely carnivores. Oh, you never know. Especially in Dungeons and Dragons, there are dragons of every color, every creed, every temperament, and I would not be surprised to think that in D&D there are at least a couple of dragons that do actually eat vegetables.
Yeah, I think purple one does.
Somebody says the purple one does. So I just had collars myself tonight, Tessa William Hurt. I think a dragon eats whatever it wants. Anthony, I think you have probably the final word on that. So, okay. Anyway, while this is in the oven, I realize you folks probably want to look at some cast iron rather than just look at that empty part of the stove. So let's bring back once again the large lid, this vintage lid here from the National Cornbread Festival. Actually, it was made 100 years before the National Cornbread Festival. Let's lower this a little bit and give you folks a nice look. This particular lid here, they call it the rope handle lid because of the way this handle is shaped. And actually, I learned that this lid was in fact made in two parts. What they did was they took this curved piece of metal and stuck it into the top of the mold even before the molten iron was poured into it. And then so, of course, they poured it in and it made the shape of the lid. And naturally, of course, when the iron cooled, it permanently fastens the handle on. And so as a result, this is what we have here, this so-called rope handled lid. On the underside of this, meanwhile, you have the unmistakable design of a lodge lid, which they have been using for for their entire history. This, as we saw, also that just fit fine on the on the number 8 10-inch modern day cast iron skillet. So yeah, it's interesting that Lodge has never changed the size of their pans throughout their entire history. So it's true that a modern day Lodge lid will fit on a vintage Lodge pan or vice versa. Anthony, I may have an identity crisis. Was the lid made for a Dutch oven as a set? I would suspect yes. This is most likely a Dutch oven lid because, after all, it doesn't have ears on it. It doesn't have the little parts there that fit over the pour spouts on the Dutch on a skillet. So this is almost certainly a Dutch oven lid. But hey, what I like to say: if the lid fits, wear it. So I certainly did not have any problem using that on this large skillet tonight, that's for sure. And I suppose it means that now maybe I have to start looking for a vintage Lodge Dutch oven to go with this lid, perhaps. Well, I'll see if I can actually manage to find one. I saw in Highball Owl 818. I saw on Food Network they laid the camel on a table and ate pieces raw. That's the first I've heard of that. Um, while it's true that they can cook beef, to very rare temperatures, and it's also true they eat raw fish, sushi. I really have not ever heard of a camel being eaten raw. And I would probably need to look that up just to verify that. Honey Badger, all this dragon talk makes me think of the Starsky and Hutch movie with Will Ferrell, which I have to admit I did not see, so I don't have an answer for that. I'm hearing a hiss in the oven. I think there is, in fact, some liquid that's dripping out of that. Well, then I guess it just means I'll have to clean the oven afterwards. But that shouldn't be too difficult. Mike, what day is it? I'm too nervous to eat raw meat. Yes, exactly. I mean, I definitely prefer mine cooked, even in the case of beef, if it's rare. Chicken, of course, I will only have well done for obvious reasons. um, I make my greens with pork side meat, Val. I never saw that movie either. Was I in it? Asks Huggy Bear. Good question. Maybe somebody who's seen it can answer that. All right. Why am I seeing here? Oh, that's why. Oh dear. Yeah, it looks like we're starting to get a little bit of smoke coming out of the oven, probably because of the liquid dripping. And I think, oh, it looks like they are being kind enough to, take care of the smoke detector because, yeah, we all know what's likely going to happen if we're not careful. You just place it on its back, the back side up, and if need be, we might need to cover it with a cloth, but that should be about it. All right. Actually, just out of curiosity, let's put on the oven light because we can. Let's see if we can get any view at all. There we go. No, this is looking pretty good. And yeah, there's definitely some bubbling liquid here on the side, as you can see. There are indeed a few drops that are dripping down onto the oven. So I definitely should have put something underneath to prevent that from happening. Well, too late now. Nonetheless, all we really need to do is just wait until we feel like it's done, because after all, that mashed potatoes, that was already cooked. So it's only a matter of really waiting. And because of that, I think I will call it in maybe about 10 minutes. I think that should probably be enough. I don't see why not. What did the dragon say when he saw the knight? Look, canned food. Or, yes. Or there's another joke from D&D in which you see a knight holding up his shield, and the shield is covered with something, well, let's just say something disgusting. And the caption says, "Who says dragons can't fly?" All right. Okay. Yeah. Yes, it is. toss a fan in the window. Well, fortunately, the window is already open, and furthermore, I do actually have the ceiling fan running, and so hopefully that helps as well. Okay, back to the cast iron. Honey Badger, I have a vintage number 9 lodge lid that does not fit my modern number 9 skillet. Ears are too big. Well, that's interesting. Ears are too big. Do you mean the ears on the modern skillet or the ears on the lodge lid? But that at least would prove that it is a skillet lid, unlike this particular one, which does not have ears. Um, Although I'm curious as well about a modern number 9 lodge skillet. Oh, wait a second. I Yeah, I do believe that might be the one. I'm trying to think in what I see in the modern lodge catalog. I'm not I do not seem to recall seeing a modern lodge skillet in the number 9 size because that has to be bigger than the number 8 and smaller than the number 10. So if you could provide some more detail about that number 9 skillet, I would be interested in hearing about it. So yeah, that does sound interesting though. I mean, granted, I've got a semi-vintage Lodge number 6 skillet, um, and I've seen Lodge number 7, but number 9 is an unusual number for Lodge as far as I know. While it's more common with, say, Wagner and Griswold, or even but number 9, I'm really having trouble picturing seeing from Lodge. Modern Lodge has small ears, vintage big ears. Well, in that case, then, um, if the ears are too big, says Honey Badger, then that would have to mean that the ears on the vintage lid are too big for the modern day skillet. So yeah, I would be interested in seeing a couple of photos of those. Because it does sound unusual. Yes, Huggy Bear, you were in it. I think it was Snoop that played you. Oh, well, there's something different for you. All right. While we're waiting, oh, I still have the milk out. I've got to put this milk back in the fridge. And then after that, I think I can get out a couple of dishes for when we start preparing or serving, I should say, the shepherd's pie. So since we're making something so fancy, might as well bring out a couple of fancy dishes to go with it. So this should be quite interesting. Okay, yeah, ears on the lid. I guess then you were right. Okay, so the ears on the lid are too big for the modern day skillet. Didn't Costco have an exclusive number 9 size skillet recently? Oh, I might have to look for it. I don't think I would really need to acquire it. I have more than enough skillets already, but it would be nice to see. Who doesn't like Snoopy Dog? Lodge number 9 was at Walmart in the grilling area a few years ago. Really? Okay, I definitely want to take a closer look and see what it is. The number 9 would have to be what? Maybe an 11-inch skillet? Although now that I'm thinking of it, if it's like 11 inches, then that might actually be from their rust resistance series that they made. I do believe that was an unusual size. So maybe that might be the number 9 size. Yeah, I heard that. Um, yeah, skillets of unusual size. I don't think they exist. Okay. The number 9, I think, wasn't made since the 1980s or the 90s. Yeah, I would tend to agree there because it's something that I really don't recall seeing. Granted, I have not seen everything, so that's why I would indeed like to see some some photos of that. I think I can put this aside as well. There we go. That's the aluminum pot there. This way we'll have room for when this pan comes out of the oven. Okay, so far so good. Modern number 9 Lodge is only currently available at Costco. It was a gift from Lewis. Oh, nice. I don't have Costco near me. I looked and I don't think there's a Costco within 50 miles of where I am either. I have never been to a Costco for that reason. But then again, for that matter, I've never been to IKEA either. So All right. I don't see any reason why we couldn't call this because, again, all we really need to do is just wait until the crust is at least a little bit dried out. So, especially since we are getting on in time here, I do believe it's time to turn the camera around again. There we go. And now, got to get out the glove, plus another pot holder because this thing is heavy. Oh, yeah, this is looking nice. All right. And yeah, definitely a few drops gone on the surface of the oven. So, here it is. Okay. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Haha. Excuse me, I have a lid to adjust because I don't want this thing to fall over. All right. There, that's better. Okay, but there we go. Oh, interesting. These dark spots here are where the liquid was bubbling out. But anybody who's made pot pie should probably be familiar with something like that. Come on, let me try to get a good view here. This is actually pretty good. Nonetheless, made in the oh yeah, good. This is definitely more solidified of a crust here. That definitely means I do believe we have ourselves a shepherd's pie. Fun show, funny comments. Well, thank you very much, William Hurt. All right. Yeah, for wealth and yeah, wish for wealth and prosperity in the year of the dragon. Yes, I second that. Thank you very much for saying that. Which also means I should get at least one or two photos of this before we actually serve it. It means I gotta get past this screensaver here. Bring up my phone camera. There we go. Click. There we go. All right. Now, thank you very much, Louis J. And yeah, as I mentioned, shepherd's pie, as you can see, is really easy to make. I mean, it as always, it does require a little bit of patience because, of course, I had to cook the filling and then just had to bake this in the oven. But this really was not difficult at all. And I especially loved the fact that homemade mashed potatoes were used here. Honey Badger, I forget the other skillet lids were bigger than the modern skillet lids. I now have a vintage number 9 lodge lid, and my number 9 is my only lodge that doesn't have a correct size lid. Okay, ready for a bowl. Yes. We had a similar pepper grinder when I was a kid. Cool. Oh yeah, this pepper grinder. My grandmother had a crank handle pepper grinder, and so I looked for years for one of these crank handle ones before I was finally able to find this. And I believe I found it at Savers, nonetheless. However, I think we've talked enough because I know my guests are impatiently waiting to try the pie. So let's move this over a little bit. Don't want this to collapse or anything like that. Better move this over so that this cord doesn't get caught. And there we go. Actually, on top of that, I think I'd better turn this around. I'm not just trying to delay, I'm just thinking that serving this, it might be easier to have the handle on this side. Did this trivet fall? No, the trivet is still solid. Okay, good. Now, at last. Yeah, that's good. Now I can grasp it with the handle on one hand and start serving. The first piece is always the most difficult. More or less. There we are. Here's one. Maybe I should have used a bowl. Even so, There we go. Ooh, I can smell this. Oh, the smell is so interesting. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if this thing tastes as good as it smells, then I do believe we're in luck.
Yeah, such a good
Mmm. Here comes number 2. Come on. Ah, seems to stick to the spatula of all things, unfortunately. Which means, while it's not very aesthetically pleasing, if this was a cooking competition, I would be docked several points for this plating. But it's not a cooking competition. In fact, for precisely that reason, I don't want to miss these little bits right here. Tiny bit more. And then I think we're ready. Dig out a couple of forks. And here you go. Thank you once again for waiting.
Thank you.
There's one and the other.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. As always, I just hope you like it. Now we can, there you go. Good to see the whole cast iron crew here. Yes, nice to see you here as well, Louis J. Thank you very much for showing up. No, and I'm not being sarcastic. Thank you for dropping by. It doesn't fit properly though. Kibbles and bits. Well, yeah, in a way, I think you can call it that, considering it's got all these little bits of vegetables mixed in with the meat. So I certainly wouldn't regret it. Hump day pie made from actual hump, possibly. Have you used your broiler feature? You know, I barely used it. Although I would think that using the broiler to brown the top of this might actually have helped, now that you're mentioning that. But nonetheless, as once again, there is your camel meat. So,
After
grant.
a long day of shepherding camels,
Yes,
this
indeed.
really hits the spot.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm glad you like it, and there's plenty here. Although I know a couple of other people will probably want pieces of this just to try it, but there's still plenty here nonetheless. All right, so far so good. So there we go. After being delayed from last week, here indeed is our pot pie, or our shepherd's pie, or camel herder's pie, or whatever pie you want to call it. All I know is it smells wonderful, and according to my house guests here, I'd say it tastes good as well. So I'm quite happy about that. Oh, good. I like that. One of the comments here, they just said this has a very strong and distinctive flavor, and I don't believe I've ever had anything like this. So I hope that's a good thing.
Yes.
And they said yes.
Delicious.
Okay, well, there we go. That means that if we ever have the chance to have Camel again, I guess you will be all up for it. All right, well, thank you very much, and thank you for trying it too. Okay, is this the camel meat you used last time, or did you order new? Well, the last time was, oh my God, would you believe it's more than a year ago? So no, I would not say that this is the same stuff. Nonetheless, okay, camel is supposed to be tender. Older camel is leaner, stronger flavor, like lamb versus sheep. Now, that's a good point. Given that, I would not be surprised if this might indeed be older camel, partly because of the flavor, and also partly because, I don't know if they raise camels, especially for meat, the way they raise cattle. So presumably, then, if more likely this would come from, just that, from older retired camels. Or that would be my guess. Okay. Has it been that long ago? I know, it's hard to believe. The time sure flies, doesn't it? But yeah, it was for April Fool's Day last year that I made camel burgers. My apologies, could have sworn it was a few months ago. That was April Fool's Day last year when I made camel burgers. This year for April Fool's Day, I made that D&D role players cheesecake. The Mountain Dew cheesecake. Oh, I can turn off the oven too. So yeah, it's surprisingly how much the time flies. And that's actually concerning me because of the status of my website. I won't go into this for a long time, but I mentioned how my website is currently being transitioned to the new website after the old website went down. And I do have to say, I like the look of what has come up so far. I'm doing my best to reload, as much content from the original website as possible. If you go to my website right now, motomac.com, you'll see most of the links, unfortunately, are still empty. But I have been making an effort to rebuild the Birmingham Stove and Range site. And I'm thinking that I'm not quite halfway done with the Birmingham Stove and Range site, but a couple of crucial parts of it, especially the parts about Red Mountain and Century Cookware, they at least are worth browsing at this point. So I might want to ask that if you go to my website, click on the BSR link and let me know what you think. Yeah, because I mean, trying to rebuild the website while at the same time working a full-time job and also trying to do cooking. It's a slow process, but I am working on it as best as I can. And having said that, I do believe we are pretty much all set because I think we've really done everything that we set out to do. So, well, I mean, we've got ourselves a nice shepherd's pie here. I think I can lower this a little bit. Yeah, that's a little better. Yeah, we've got ourselves a nice shepherd's pie. And indeed, so that means now we can all get started preparing for Memorial Day weekend. We've got the long weekend coming up, which, of course, for many people is a big day for cooking. Usually it's outdoor cooking with the burgers and all the rest of the usual stuff that they have on Memorial Day. But hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, who can say no to burgers, and why not? So I'm depending on what my schedule turns out to be this weekend, because I still don't know, I really intend to get something special in. Might even be able to bring out the big pot and do jambalaya if I'm lucky. All right. Well, thank you again, though, to Val's Black Cats Rules for the nice comments. And yeah, Louis J. Yes, do catch the replay tonight, and I hope you like it. I hear camel milk is good too. Yeah, I have heard that, and that's another thing I've not yet had the chance to try. Australia has growing camel meat trade. Afghan early Muslim migrants, cameleers, helped settle Australia's interior. Well, that's actually interesting, Clico. So yeah, you may have a more of a market for camel than we do here in the United States. BSR is very durable and strong cast iron cookware. Yes, it is. And that's why I'm very proud to host that BSR website. And that's why I'm doing everything I can to try to get it rebuilt as best and as fast as possible. And thank you as well to Huggy Bear. Yes, and see you all next week. Take a bite. Well, I guess I better take a bite at least just to satisfy my own curiosity, which means let me dig out my good old titanium spork here and get one mouthful here of the pie. Still steaming. Mm, 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 mm-hmm. Mm. There's a lot of flavor in this. Good flavor. And yeah, there is definitely something to it that really is unique too. Something I can't really describe either, mm, but I certainly like it. Yeah. Okay, but thank you everybody. Yeah, yeah. The Aussie dessert uses camels too. There are two camel farms in Missouri and one in Southern California. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where this came from, in fact. But yes, exactly, Val. Stay safe from the storms out there. And you're here in New York too, so you know that all too well. And thank you as well. And see you next week, Huggy Bear. And a reminder, next week is the last Wednesday of the month, which means we're going to try continuing that tradition of the last Cast Iron Wednesday of the month is going to be Walk Wednesday, or or something similar to that. Walk Week or Walk Wednesday. But either way, it's an excuse to bring out the cast iron and walk next week, and we will see what happens. So thank you to everybody, though, who's been kind enough to stop by this evening, and I can only hope that, well, if this inspires you to do some cooking of your own, well, then good. In that case, then I will like to think that I have accomplished what I set out to do. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to Greg Hart, and good night, all. And thank you to Val's Plaque Cats Rule and Rocket Caver and Clico and 4M Morris family and Corey Clark and Anthony. Yes, nice to at least catch the end of the show, Louis J. Thank you very much for dropping by as well. Mission accomplished, as Anthony said. We gonna walk and wall next week. Yes, we will. And likewise to Kevin Brown, we'll all see you then. And to everybody, yes, take care, everybody. So I think we'll be ending it now with the way we usually end it. As I always say, this is, again, the quote from my all-time favorite movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey. See you next Wednesday.